And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Nicole Muse, who communicated with blue-skinned beings during her near-death experience, which we're going to learn about and more. Nicole, thanks for joining me and welcome.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Nicole, let's start on the day you died and go from there.
Okay, so it was a very strange day. I woke up, I didn't feel very well, and I told Christos that I needed to go to hospital because something was going on. And Christos, being a doctor, immediately knew that there was something wrong with the baby. I was, I think, about 4 months pregnant or so. And of course, we were rushed into the hospital, and, you know, as it was, sadly, the baby inside of me had died. And they said, listen, you can't stay like that. We need to, unfortunately, remove the dead fetus from you. And so, you know, of course, I was suddenly in shock because I was really looking forward to have a child. And I was lying on the bed, very, very scared and sad. And Christos was next to me, and they decided to give me anesthesia. And I don't know, I had a bad feeling already before the whole scenario happened. And as they gave me anesthesia, I started having some kind of a weird reaction. My heart started beating really, really fast. And the doctors were like looking at the monitor thinking, what's going on? Her blood pressure was rising. Everything was going really like a bit crazy. And then suddenly in that moment, all I remember was being sucked out of my body into this blue-white light. And it happened instantaneously. And as I left my body, I don't know, it was almost like you couldn't fight the feeling of being sucked out into this blue-white vortex. It didn't matter what you did. I couldn't hold on to the life that I just had. I was just going through this incredible tunnel at full speed. And as I came out of the tunnel, I suddenly arrived in this illuminated, brilliantly bright room. It's not what I expected, but I arrived there seeing two incredibly beautiful white marble type thrones. And on these thrones, I immediately tuned in and saw these beings, enormous beings, which had humanoid torsos, fish-like tails, and feathered hair. Now, you couldn't make this up because I have no idea what on earth this was. I just stood there, but I wasn't scared. It was almost a feeling of, I understood where I was. I understood who they were. It's almost like some type of instant memory starts to trickle back of knowing where you are once you're there. And the life that you've had in our world here seems more and more like a dream. It starts to trickle away, you know, as a dream. And suddenly that place becomes your life. So suddenly I was there. They stood in front of me. I looked at them. I remember they had indigo eyes. And we didn't speak. It was more just telepathic communication where they looked deeply into my eyes and first of all calmed me down and said to me telepathically, you're home. It's okay, you're home. And in that moment, it was like, this is real. This has got to be real. I see myself. I see you. I can feel the room. I can feel the heat in the room. I can almost sense this watery element of the room. The room looked illuminated and kind of a watery element. And I don't know, I just felt an absolute relief, an absolute relief. And they looked at me and they said to me, telepathically, everything was telepathically, that the reason that I'm here was because I just lost a child and I shouldn't worry, it's okay. I'm not supposed to, in this earthly life, have children, which I thought was incredibly strange, but I accepted it because once you're there, you believe it all to be the truth. Because as I said, this world, this life, this world that you're suddenly in is real. You're no longer, it no longer seems dreamlike. You seem fully aware with all your senses. So I accepted that. And then they started to tell me a lot of things about our world and about life in general. And as they were telling me more and more information, I felt deeply peaceful, deeply happy. I was sucked right back into my body. And before I knew it, my husband was standing next to me holding my hand, and some awful Viennese nurse was holding my hand next to me, and I was gripping her hand and going, "Are you? Oh my God! I've just been to the most incredible. Oh my!" But of course, I wasn't speaking English. I was speaking fluent dolphin whale clicking high-pitched frequency sounds. It seemed almost like frequency sound. And she was just throwing my hand off, leave me alone, in her Austrian accent. Immediately I knew back where I was. Immediately I could feel the fear and the energy of her being this earthly human. And luckily, my husband was next to me and held my hand as I was speaking this language fluently. And he just said, "Don't worry, it's okay, it's okay. You're here, you're back, everything's fine." And he just he accepted me speaking that language because he's actually heard that language before from another patient many, many years prior to me. It sounded very similar, that language, but it was a fluent ancient language, that's all I can say, and that's what he also perceived. That's something that we can actually, I believe, all speak fluently once we're there. We just understand it because it's not in vowels or words. It comes out as frequency. And what I've come to understand is that everything is frequency. We're made out of electromagnetic frequency. Everything is. We're living in a holographic experience where everything is a frequency. This is a frequency where we're emitting radio signals and all kinds of signals with the internet, everything else. So everything is a frequency, and that language was a frequency. And I actually believe now that because I was able to speak this language, I was able to heal certain things within my physical vessel once I came back to this earth with this language. I think it instantly healed my body with these frequencies. These frequencies were meant to heal my body and the trauma and the guilt and everything else. So that was my NDE. It was a very fast experience, but it lasted over several hours, I suppose. And I spoke the language for at least 10 minutes or so with my husband, this dolphin sounding mer language. So that was really, really amazing. I mean, this happened quite a while now ago. This happened in 2015. But, something like that you can't forget. You remember that. And, a lot of people say to me, "Well, don't you think you were dreaming?" Well, no, it wasn't a dream. My heart literally stopped. I left my body. I was sucked into a blue-white light. And then I also get criticized, why didn't I see Jesus? Where was God? Well, these beings were full of love. They were full of empathy and Christ-like energy. So for me, that was love, that was universal love. That's what I experienced. So, yeah, that was my unusual experience with these beings.
Nicole, thank you for sharing your experience with us. Since these beings were on a throne, do you feel like they were royalty or in charge in some sort of way?
I never thought about the part of them sitting on thrones. They could have been some kind of hierarchy. That's all I can imagine. It's some kind of a hierarchy in the interdimensional realms where you have helpers, where you have those above helpers and those above those and above those. So I can only imagine that there must be some kind of frequency hierarchy, but it's nothing based on the hierarchy that we have here. It's not ego related. It's really based on love and wisdom.
Could it be that the architecture of that place is kind of Greek or Romanesque and perhaps all the chairs would be that way?
You know what? What I've come to understand more and more about my NDE is that we are incredible creators when we come to this earth. And the moment we get our umbilical cord cut and we are put back into a family, and we are programmed by our mum and dad, who we are, what our names are, how life should be. Should we be guilty, angry, sad, happy, or joyful? What we can do, what we can't do. We are programmed from day one. And beneath all that programming, we come into this realm as a complete, unconditional, loving frequency. And that frequency is completely broken the moment we're put in families. I think I've kind of, over time, understood that. My dog is scratching. Lily, stop it. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
And that's what I think. I think it's just, that's what happens. So for me, where was I? With the frequency? For me, it's just a hierarchy frequency. Our voices are frequency. Our voices aren't here to speak. I think that we're here to use our voices to heal different energy chakras or different energy areas in our body with different frequencies. We just have learned a language because we're programmed to learn a language, whether it's English, French, Italian, Swahili. We're here to learn a language. So we're never really using our true frequency vocal cords to use what we're here to do with them. That's what I think now. And that's what our singing voices are, actually, here to heal.
You mentioned that you saw yourself. Did you see yourself looking the same way they did?
Wow. I think all I could see or sense about me was that I did have blue skin. That's the only thing I could sense. Was it the lighting? I don't know, because everything was super, super bright. It's almost like you're in the sun, but the sun doesn't burn your eyes. It comes with this incredible warmth and loving energy, almost like a dawn and a dusk mixed together. It's just overwhelmingly beautiful, the light.
After experiencing being home while you were there, what do you think this place is?
Oh, easy. This world is the dream world. This world, we're programmed from day one, as I said, and we're programmed almost to a script, and we're following out a script instead of living our own lives. We follow a script, whether it's school, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, and we follow that script into whichever direction the script is going. And the moment we cease to believe in that script, the moment we disengage from that script, we're able to create, truly master our own lives. And so many of us, millions and millions and millions of us, are continuously following the script of believing we are powerless, when in fact, we are so powerful.
So do we have any amount of free will?
Look, I think when we're there, we almost want to experience. We don't have this ego where we're scared and fearful of coming into a new family and having poverty in our lives, or, being in a situation where you might be bastard as a child. We don't think about those things, as horrific as they are. We are almost we are on the other side, and we are there without our ego to say, you know what, I want to learn what it feels like to be in poverty in the next life. I want to experience that. I want to learn from it. I want to show how powerful I can be in those scenarios, in those situations, with those family members growing up like that. And I think that we, in the interdimensional realms, are able to, if you say free will, possibly choose those future experiences. And based on your wisdom and your life experiences of before, you'll then choose possibly harder lives and sometimes possibly easier lives, depending on the whole karmic makeup of who you really are inside.
I'm assuming that we choose all this to come here and experience and grow. But from what you're saying, should we really deviate from the script and have this powerful life, because then we're not going through the lessons that we came here for in the first place?
Oh, you can be powerful with lessons too. You can inspire people when you've got no legs. You can inspire people when you've overcome being an alcoholic for 40 years. You know, all these experiences of being in an orphanage and having no parents and, you know, seeing what it's like to, you know, be masterful and create your life again and be strong through it. And I'm not saying it's easy, because many people end up broken and alone and damaged. But it's up to you. How do you reach your fullest potential whilst going through that hardcore, distressful, chaotic experience called life? I think it's all about being masterful and following the universal loving call, the Christ-like call within you, always understanding that these experiences are meant to break your heart open wider and wider and wider until you one day master how it is to become a fully invincible being. I call it a superhero because I do believe that's where we're heading. And a superhero has nothing to do with, you know, wearing a cape. A superhero is there to bring into this world universal love, to bring in heaven upon earth. That's what a hero does here.
I had a guest the other day, and we were talking about, in order to have contact with aliens, you must endure suffering first. And you just mentioned about having your heart broken wide open.
Yeah.
Do you think trauma in our lives is what makes us access greater things?
Wow. Well, I'm getting teary-eyed you saying that, because I can sense so many viewers are feeling that question. And I can only speak for myself, but for me, going through chronic illness in 2020 and being unable to walk and bedbound and suffering from chronic insomnia, and I got really ill to the point of that I almost died. I literally had 2 months left to live, as the doctors told me. I overcame that, and it took me years to overcome that, which in hindsight actually is a miracle. And the miracle is that it absolutely broke me open. It broke me open so much at one point that I felt I didn't have an ego, because I had so much chronic deprivation of sleep, of brain fog, of chronic fatigue. It was horrific that I just had to let go from control. And the moment, I think, when we let go from control fully and give ourselves to something much greater than ourselves, then we are able to start trusting. And that's the issue. So we all don't want to trust, I mean, truly trust. But when something really chronic like that starts happening in our lives, you know, whether it's through chronic depression or suicidal thoughts or whatever it is, once you start to go through that, because I went through all of that, because when I was in that chronic situation, I was at one point, I ran away to a field with a knife. Sorry, Jeff, just to get emotional. It's awful to get emotional, but I had a knife in my hand and I wanted to cut my wrists because I couldn't bear the feeling of being trapped in this broken body anymore. And I remember sitting under, it was really quite symbolic. I sat under this ancient olive tree in the middle of a field, just this one single beautiful olive tree, and I sat there with a knife. And I could always sense this unbelievable guidance saying, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not your time. Be strong. Be strong. You'll get through this. Trust. And that was the continuous inner voice that I kept on hearing. This inner voice kept on pushing me through. So I didn't take my life, and I overcame my illness. And it took me at least 3-4 years to overcome my chronic illness. And here I am today. So yes, I think through chronic suffering, we are able to truly break open our hearts and become even more loving than we were yesterday.
Well, who did you surrender to? That voice, which was possibly your higher self, or would you say you surrendered to God?
Well, that voice, we are all fractals from the greater spark of God. Every single one of us are tiny, tiny little fractals that have been exploded and born into a realm, this dimensional realm, to experience 100 billion different experiences in this earth. And when we hear, we all think we're separate, but we're not. We're actually, all of us, the same being, playing out different roles. And this aspect, when you die and you go back to this greater awareness, you realize that you're part of everything. You're part of the Christ. You're part of that love that Christ came to bring on this earth, that he was trying to tell humanity, not to follow a religion, but to follow a way of being, universally loving each other, loving ourselves, so therefore we can love one another. And that's what I think it is. When we go back there, we suddenly have this overwhelming experience that we were never alone, that we are part of this incredible energetic source, which is actually water, to be honest. I have to be honest, it is water. I think there is water above us and water below us, not space.
Would it be accurate to say that you spoke some sort of dolphin language? And if so, have you went on YouTube or some other platform and listened to dolphins and see if that makes any sense to you?
Interesting. That's a good question. I understand absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. But when I was speaking in this frequency, different tones with dolphin sounds, it made absolute sense to me. In fact, being able to speak English again afterwards didn't make sense, because I suddenly thought it seems a very deep and heavy frequency actually making words. We're not supposed to make these words. We're supposed to use our voices in a completely different way. I'm 100% sure about that. Our voices were never meant to speak languages. They're meant to be used in a totally different way.
Have you had contact with beings before or after this NDE?
Well, when I was a child, I had a really interesting experience. It lasted from the ages of between 3 and 6, and they would come at night. I would always see by the door, before I'd fall asleep, I'd see this strange man, like a shadow man, with a top hat, a really long top hat, but he was all completely made out of a shadow. And he would do this, like play by the door until I would fall asleep. And then these blue beings would arrive. And they'd come through my window, they would lift me out of my body, they would take me through the window, through down the road into the neighbour's garden, who has a huge woodland area. And at the bottom of the woodland area garden, there was an enormous fun fair with some kind of UFO structure. And there I would meet a dragon. I have no idea. It sounds crazy, but every single night I was ecstatically excited to go to sleep to experience that. It happened every single night from the ages of 3 to 6 years of age. And I remember that like yesterday because of the dragon. And the dragon was really funny. He was, like a really funny kind of dragon. I have no idea what I was doing there with all these lights, these bright lights. I have no idea what that was. I interpreted it as a kind of a fun fairish building with lots of lights. In hindsight, was it something else? I don't know. But I was taken there every night for many years as a child. Yeah. And these beings were blue skinned, but they were small. They weren't tall like the other ones. They had blue skin, but small. The two blue boys, I would call them.
You're also a painter, right?
Yes.
Have you painted anything from your NDE?
Yes, I have. I painted the two beings that are sitting on thrones. And it's never like the way you see it. It's too difficult to be able to paint something as interdimensionally beautiful and incredibly profound as that. But yes, I did paint these two beings.
Are they on a website where the audience can go take a look at them?
Yes, yeah. I painted them and I put them on my website so they can have a look there and they can buy them as prints. Yeah.
What's your website?
My website is NicoleMeeuws.com. And I actually started painting after my NDE. I never had any direction in my life at all. I never knew what I was going to do with my life because I was a complete rebel at school. I hated school. I hated authority. And I was just traveling the world from one experience to the next, meeting criminals to politicians to poets to artists. I met so many incredibly profound people. And these people really shaped my life. And after the NDE, without direction, I just one day started painting, and that really, really helped me, kind of heal through the NDE as well. So yeah, my art really came. It was almost heightened after the NDE. And the other thing that I was able to do, of course, was I became much more psychic, much more psychic. I was able to tune into people, and I was able to know things about people. I could feel things and sense things about people's lives, which wasn't always pretty, I was able to start something that I call soul frequency paintings, where I literally paint what I see and feel about their lives and about their souls onto a canvas. And that's also what I do. I paint soul frequency paintings for clients all around the world. And I love doing it. It's amazing. Every single painting is unique and different. So yeah, but it's I think everybody who has NDEs come back with a gift. I think many people don't realize they've got those gifts, but I think all of us, it's changed us profoundly. It's taken away our fear, and I'm not saying that I'm fearless, because I'm extremely. I'm not going to put a negative word into this, but because of my NDE, I would meditate in water afterwards, and I'd start to get downloads in the water of events, of stories, of incredible scenarios that would happen. I found it really interesting, because whenever I would go into water, into the ocean in Greece, I would have all this information coming through me, and I would sit down at the end of the night and write this all down, everything, all these stories. And I eventually made a book about that, so I also sell that on my website. But apart from that, it's incredible, because I often think about the future and where we're going, and I really truly believe it's about staying in the heart now and raising our frequency. Now, that's not going to be easy, because we're going to come towards many, many different things. And I'll tell you what happened to me after I left the island of Paros. This is very interesting. I left Paros because the earthquake started. They came very subtly, and suddenly they became more and more frequent, and then eventually every few minutes. When Paros, the island of Paros, never experienced anything like that before, not in such consistency. We were having 4.5, 5.2, 5.5 earthquakes. And I said to Christos, I started having a panic attack. I said, we need to leave. We need to get out of here. We can't stay here anymore. Something is coming. And initially he didn't take me seriously, but after a few days, it got worse and worse. I said, we need to get out of here. And I truly felt that by listening to my intuition is what took us out of the island. And suddenly all these experiences started happening. A few miracles started happening, to be honest. My mum, we ended up going from Paros to Christos's mother's house. And we stayed in northern Greece to stay away from the earthquakes, because we felt safe there. We were inland, high up in the mountains, and we stayed there for quite a few months. And during that time, Christos and I and myself, we realized that, hey, you know what? Actually, it's so much nicer on the mainland. The islands are extremely greedy, and they lost their Greek ways. The heart energy is slowly disappearing from the islands. And I think that's what really also moved us to be back into rural Greece, where you have the real Greeks, you have the real people there. And we stayed in the house there in Greece. And the next day, we got a phone call from my mother. And she said, listen, I had a really weird dream. Now, my mother lives in the UK, and she knows nothing about the house that we lived in Greece. It was Christos's grandmother's house. And she said, I had a dream, and I was told that you need to go to the corner of the house and look at the icons. And there is a picture of Jesus Christ wearing a blue and red robe. Go to that corner. And I was listening to my mom on the phone while I was in this house. I was saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? And my mom was on speakerphone, and Christos could hear everything she was saying, and his mouth dropped open. And he was like, are you kidding me? And he kind of pulled my arm while I was on the phone to my mum to the corner of the room. And there, in the corner of the room, was a picture of Jesus Christ wearing a blue and red robe. And I didn't understand why my mum was having this dream. And she said to me, you need to go to the church and say thanks, give your thanks to the church and say thank you that you're safe. So I don't know what the future's going to hold, what's going to happen. I pray to God that nothing will happen regarding volcanoes and earthquakes. But I see this as a prophetic dream that we were taken far away from there. And we did. We went to church and we gave our thanks. And the strange thing is that during that time, a house came available to rent in another area of northern Greece. And I looked at this house and I just said, this is the house we need to go to. This is the house where we have to live. It's the most beautiful house with 80 olive trees. We're surrounded by nature and mountains and rivers and waterfalls. And it's spectacularly green. It's incredible. And as we came into this house to view this house, right in front of us on the wall, there was a huge icon with Jesus wearing a red and blue robe. And so, you follow the signs if you're aware of them, if you understand what this so-called dream world is. And if you're able to follow the signs, it will lead you always to a place of deep peace. Now, I want to just say, I'm not religious, but I do believe in this energy frequency called Christ. I know it's real. And I see it more as a universal love. It's like an incredible, potent love that we all have within ourselves. But it's whether we use that love or not while we're here on earth. That's the important part. So yes, here I am, Northern Greece, loving it, living it, being as creative as I've never been before, painting wildly. I have a beautiful flourishing cherry tree right outside my window that's about to have cherries in a couple of months. Is that symbolic? I need to read about that. What does a cherry tree mean? Everything I now see as a deeply symbolic meaning. I think almost like the Native American Indians, they see signs and they read symbols everywhere. And I think we need to start to look more at the signs of things, whether they're in films, whether they're in music videos, whether they're in our daily lives. We need to pay attention to the signs. What is being shown to us? What do we need to stay away from? What do we need to trust and believe in? And I really think it's something that's within us. It's something greater than ourselves. It's when we connect to it that it can really guide us the right way and connect to love and let go from the fear, let go from the guilt, the shame, the sadness, and truly follow it with a deep knowing, a deep trust. That's what I think we all need to do. We need to remember we're here to create heaven on earth again.
I know you said that you are not fearless, but do you fear death?
Yes. Look, I think the pain, it's basically the pain that we all fear, isn't it? It's how we're going to die. But beyond that, I think it's something that happens so instantaneously that you're helped to pass through very fast. I think the greater knowing, the greater God, source, universal Christ energy of love, it helps you pass through. I don't think it ever wants you to suffer. I think it's just about, in that moment when you are going to pass, it's just about letting go. Stop fighting it. Stop fighting it and saying, we're in a dream world anyway here. It seems real. Every day is monotonous. It seems real because we're programmed with all of this. But when you let go of this world and you start to really create in this reality, being the artist in this reality, as we've all been, we're all actually artists. I've got to say that. We're just programmed not to be. We're really forced into the left brain way of thinking. So we forget the intuitive side, the artistic side, the spiritual side. We're programmed deeply into the left brain to act out on logic, metrics, analytics. Look at the buildings in our world. How ugly are the buildings in our world? They're all square and tall and just hideous. And then when you look into a world that's created with the right side of way of being, can you imagine how beautiful and abundant and flowing and colorful the buildings would be? And not just that, the healing frequencies that they would emit, and the technology that would be used in our world if we were more towards the right way of being. And I actually started a YouTube channel about that, which is called Infinite Canvas, the Artist's Voice, and I interview artists all over the world. So yes, I'm still new to it, but I really want to bring more people into this more balanced way of thinking. It's not just being in your right side of brain and forgetting about the left. It's becoming more balanced in our mind, and letting go from this, oh, I don't believe it. It can't happen, be logic. No, it's like, understand who you truly are. That's the key. Understand how potent you truly are.
Well, if we're all creators, then technically, I guess we're all artists, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to remind everybody to be again, to understand that every single person on this earth, in this realm, was born an artist. Just so many of us are programmed not to go into the schooling systems and forget that you're a true creator, true artist. And I want people to step back into creating things with their hands. We're going into this incredibly fast AI world. Now, in some sense, it's great because it's helping us. And if we use it the right way, it can be fantastic. But we need to use it and also step away from it and still remember to use our hands to create things. Woodwork, artwork, sewing, poetry, writing, whatever it is that you can create. I think we need to get back into the organic way of creating things. Because think about it, when you're at a festival, isn't it so lovely to go to people who make things with their hands? I love that. And I miss that. And I want to see more of that again. I think the young generation also want to see more of that. That's why they're desperately clinging on to those retro fashions and retro photography and all of that, because they don't want to go into the future, because none of us know where this is going. And we need to remember that we're organic beings, and we need to step back into the organic way of living, which is being here as creators, as artists, living in this dream realm, this earth, because this is the dream realm.
Nicole, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, should they leave comments in your YouTube videos or contact you through your website?
Look, I'm here to help anyone. If you're going through a hard time, if you need help, advice, anything like that, I'm really here to send you love and to guide you in the best possible way. But I'm not a guru. I'm absolutely not a guru. I am not a new age woo-woo, as you call it in the States. I am just here as another you, listening to you, and maybe just igniting a tiny spark inside of you to remember who you really are. And if anybody wants to reach me, they can reach me on my website, which is NicoleMeeuws.com. I can send you it underneath. I can send my links to you. When I'm in the ocean, I meditate and I get the most incredible downloads, story downloads about our world, this realm, and future scenarios that may or may not happen. And these stories I write down in a book called Terra Infinita, Downloads from the Ether. So yeah, they're incredible stories, beautifully illustrated. And yeah, the stories are wild and very, very interesting. And they talk about a time in the future. I think by 2050, all these things start taking place, but they start now already, 2027. 2032. So yeah, I write all these dates down, and if people are interested, have a look at that book. It's a really interesting read.
Is that book on Amazon?
It's on my website. You can get that book on my website. If you go into NicoleMeeuws.com and go into the shop, and you'll see my books there. And of course, I also sell my autobiography. So that's my wild criminality life in the 90s, if people are interested. I mean, not that I'm a criminal, but I experienced a lot in my life, so that's why I am who I am now, I guess.
Nicole, before we finish up, can you give us one more positive message?
Freedom. Remember that no matter what will happen to all of us in our lives, freedom is the most important thing, and we must do everything to hold on to that. Remember, you are a potently powerful being, and remember that you are part of the greater God source. You're just a fractal, a spark. You are me, I am you. Remember that we're here to create heaven on earth.
Nicole, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Mwah! Blessings.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.